After a one-night stand with guardian Jinyan, I ran away for the night to study abroad. Afterward, the ruthless man didn't bat an eye. It's okay to go abroad, but you have to return home after 3 years. A few years later, I had just walked out of the airport with my child when I was invited to the car by Jinyan Ford's bodyguards. I trembling slyly. I got married. A familiar laugh came from the top of my head, without a trace of temperature. Ran. Let my child take someone else's surname. You have enough guts. It is well known that Jinyan Ford's discipline of me is harsh to the point of being outrageous. For as long as I can remember, I wasn't allowed to spend the night out. I've never been allowed to fall in love with anyone. But tonight, Jinyan Ford was drunk and lying right in front of me, the warm yellow light falling on his cold, beautiful face was dumbfounding. Uncle Junior, I called out to him. Jinyan Ford was unmoved. He was drunk, or maybe had been drugged with something. Anyway, that's how he was when I came in. I brought a wet handkerchief and tried to wipe his forehead when suddenly I was taken into his arms. Good boy. Look up at me. A low raspy voice slipped through the night, with a commanding tone. Subdued and elegant. My heart beating wildly, I met those eyes that contained drunkenness and boldly touched his collar. Normally, I would never have dared to do it. Jinyan Ford's strict family education. Even I am not allowed to fall in love. How could I be allowed to do this kind of thing? When he wakes up, it is likely that he will personally kill me. Suddenly, a cold kiss landed on my lips. It provoked a shiver down one's spine. Relax. Jinyan Ford invaded my sanity in an instant with a tone that brooked no question. It's been a night of panic, so much so that I've spilled the tea on the table and wrinkled the hotel sheets. But I didn't dare to make a sound. Fearing that Jinyan Ford would wake up from his drunken stupor and discover that his niece had the guts and climbed into his bed, tossing and turning until dawn, Jinyan Ford finally let me go. I put on my clothes and fled, holding back my shaking legs. Ren. You know, someone has been pissing off your brother-in-law lately. When I received the call from BFF, I was hiding in family mansion, applying medicine to my body. I accidentally touched a bruise and grimaced in pain. He's weirdly ruthless. Not at all compassionate. What's wrong with my little uncle? BFF said quietly, your little uncle's people turned the city upside down, like looking for someone. Hey, don't know who is so unlucky to mess with this benefactor. I slowly stopped my hand. I knew who Jinyan Ford was looking for, a woman who had the guts to take advantage of him while he was drunk. The sound of a door opening suddenly came from outside, followed by familiar footsteps coming from the foyer. I hurriedly wrapped up my clothes and collided with a man at the entrance. Uncle Junior. I was startled and hurriedly pressed the phone. Jinyan Ford stood in the light, his body covered with a halo of light. His cold and beautiful face was staring at me without moving. Cold. I hang my head. The tips of my ears are red. Jinyan Ford's gaze suddenly falls on the inside of my wrist. It's the hickey he left behind last night. I hadn't had time to cover it. I in love. The nonchalant tone made the hairs on my body count down. I had already suffered from his torment last night, and with the shock, my little face instantly turned white. No. Jinyan Ford looks down at me and laughs out softly. Ren, what do you think? You're 18 years old. You just graduated high school. Yes. I was too young for Jinyan Ford. Jinyan Ford said, don't let anyone touch you until you go to college. Next time I find out, you know the consequences. But, Jinyan Ford narrowed his eyes. What's wrong with you? I've already put you to sleep. I didn't dare to say this and fled back to my room. I thought with all my heart that Jinyan Ford would be lenient to me when he knew the truth. But a few days later, I went to the office to look for him. But I heard him talking to someone. If you can't find it, keep looking, and if you find it, he asked. Jinyan Ford spilled out a not-so-subtle sneer. If you find it, why do I have to teach you? Send it in. I was so scared that I forgot what I wanted to say to him, and that night I bought a plane ticket and flew straight abroad. I only left a message for Jinyan Ford. Uncle, I'm going abroad to study. After a dozen hours, I received a short sentence on my cell phone. Yes. But you have to come back to China after 3 years. 5 years have passed in a flash. When I woke up from that hot and charming dream, I found that the plane had landed in a city. 5 years have passed, but every time I dream of that night scene, I still feel hot and confused. I closed my eyes, somewhat dazed. Advertisement for Ford Group was playing on the display screen. Jinyan Ford's cold, beautiful face was mesmerized as it was back then. "Mom, it's here." Toba's voice pulled me back from my trance, looking at those eyes that looked exactly the same as on the poster. I was flooded with sadness. It was a full 2 years after the date Jinyan Ford had set. If I hadn't heard that Jinyan Ford was approaching, I would have planned to stay abroad for the rest of my life. Cars were coming and going at the pickup point. I was sitting in the VIP lounge with Toby and was looking down to contact the cab that was coming to pick me up. I didn't notice the door to the lounge open. A man walked in, surrounded by people, unbeknownst to me. Toby ran straight at the man in charge. In front of everyone, he spread his arms to the cool and elegant Jinyan Ford, giggling and shouting, "Uncle, hug." The whole place is dead silent. I turned around and saw that face. Scared out of my wits, dashed over and picked up Toby. "Little uncle, 5 years have not seen." Jinyan Ford is still the same as before, a pair of dark eyes full of probing meaning, as if at any time can see through people. Jinyan Ford wasn't too surprised, but instead raised his eyebrows slightly. "You still know that you have me as a little uncle." He then looked at Toby in my arms. The gaze was certain. "Don't you want to explain? This is my child." The words were followed by even more dead silence. Jinyan Ford's eyes instantly turned cold, and after seeing my apprehensive expression, he turned to his secretary and said, "The meeting turns on the line. Take Ms. Xia home." After saying that, I was invited into the car by Jinyan Ford's people. I knew he would be angry. After 5 years of not hearing from him, he came back with a whole baby. Jinyan Ford would be lucky if he didn't break my legs out on the way. I kept my head down and didn't dare to say anything. Toby was not afraid of being born and obediently fell asleep in Jinyan Ford's arms. Jinyan Ford held Toby with one hand and struck the handrail with the other, like a death knell. After a long time, Jinyan Ford smiled coldly. "Rachel Summers, I haven't seen you in 3 years. But you've given me a big one. Where's the father?" His tone was casual, but the coldness in his words was creepy. I blurted out, "Died of an illness abroad." To support my words, I also held up the cheap ring on my ring finger. Jinyan Ford looked at me faintly and did not say a word for a long time. The night was thick as the car pulled into the family mansion. Toby had been taken down to bed by the nanny. There was a small light on in the living room. Jinyan Ford sat in the sofa, scrutinized me standing there, and smiled softly. "Tell me, what's wrong?" After 5 years of being away, it was as if I had been transported back to the old days, when I was under Jinyan Ford's control. I was a little understated and whispered, "I shouldn't have gone away for 5 years at a time. I shouldn't have hidden my marriage from you. I shouldn't have had a baby, and I don't know how." Jinyan Ford looked at me a little sharp, the same as under the knife. I bowed my head. "That's all, that's all." Jinyan Ford tasted my words playfully, the smile at the corner of his lips gradually cold. He got up and picked up his jacket, as if he was going out. "Uncle, where are you going?" Jinyan Ford said lightly. "My good deed is near, don't you know?" I instantly snapped back to my senses, realized he was going to meet the woman he was about to marry, and nodded my head in disbelief. "Aren't you going to ask me who I am?" I looked confused. "Who?" "Lila Loran." The moment I heard the name, I blushed. "Uncle Junior. You can. Everyone else is fine. Only Lila Loran is not." Jinyan Ford snorted. "What? I can't date when you have kids." "Not." With a slam of the door, Jinyan Ford leaves. Late at night, in the bar's booth, the BFF group's eyes widened. "What? You had Jinyan Ford's baby?" News of Jinyan Ford's impending engagement to Lila Loran has been making the rounds lately. After a few days of putting up with it, I couldn't sit still and reached out to the BFF group for help. The group spoke up and told me why. Back then, Mr. Ford searched every corner for someone because he was taken advantage of by a woman. First, Mr. Ford was going to send the woman in, but then he changed his mind. Later, Lila Loran admitted it and became your brother-in-law's girlfriend. The more I listened, the worse I felt. Isn't this imposter? What's more, I bumped into Lila Loran when she was planning how to get my brother-in-law. She's just a person with a bad heart, with my heart in my mouth. I got up and went to the restroom to catch my breath. It happened that a familiar voice came from the cubicle. Don't worry, 3 years ago he himself didn't know who he slept with. The main body has a heart, early jumped out. Now does not appear that no evidence, I imposter how, marry in, and all the Fu family's assets will be mine. Surprisingly, it's Lila Loran. What a coincidence. That night 3 years ago was so sudden. Jean Ford was delirious when I burst through the door. Of course he couldn't tell who I was. Just one thing, he took me in his arms and pulled me down into an endless sea of lust. Lila Loran took advantage of that, taking a break from the memories. I realized that Lila Loran is there tonight, and odds are that Jean Ford is there, too. Not wanting to smother Jean Ford, I searched all the way down the private room and finally found Jean Ford's private room. When I pushed open the door, Jean Ford was absent-mindedly browsing through the drink list. When he heard the commotion, he lifted his eyelids and looked over. His eyes settled on me. I mustered the courage to walk over to him. Uncle Junior. Can you change it? Change what? Auntie. I gulped and stammered. I don't like her. Jean. Ford's gaze was sharp and deep, like an inquisitor's. Then who do you like? I was about to be sucked into those dark, deep eyes. With a twitch in my brain, I suddenly tugged on Jean Ford's tie. Uncle, do you think I'm okay? It was only after I said it that I realized how ridiculous that statement was. The minute-long silence gradually calmed me down. Why God, what am I doing? Jean Ford looked at me condescendingly. And half a dozen times he evoked a nonchalant smile. What? You're looking for a stepfather for your kid and you found him in your brother-in-law. In my expectation, Jean Ford might scold me coldly, or he might just ask his bodyguard to take me back. The only thing I didn't expect was that he would ask me back in such a tone that I blushed. Jean Ford leaned in close, stared at my clenched tie, and whispered, Ren, loosen your grip and I'll pretend you didn't say anything tonight, listening to the sound of heels residing close outside the booth. I commit a ringing, stubbornly lifting my gaze to meet his. Can't you? I'm not a kid anymore. I want a relationship. Jean Ford asks, with your brother-in-law. I pursed my lips and stubbornly didn't say anything. The smile on Jean Ford's lips slowly faded. He pinched my chin and moved closer. Sensing his near breath, I closed my eyes in shock. For a moment, my clear, sharp breaths mingled with his. The bottom of my heart was in a ball of panic. Is he going to kiss me? The waiting kiss was slow to fall. Jean Ford lets out a muffled laugh. Want me to kiss you? Rachel Summers, how dare you? Shame swept through my body instantly and I shivered slightly. Jean Ford's hand clasps around my neck, the warmth of his palm seeping through inch by inch. Open your eyes. He ordered faintly. My eyelids fluttered, afraid to look up at him. Where's the guts from earlier? I stiffened my mouth. I just wasn't ready. This was met with a snort from Jean Ford. How dare you ask me to change my girlfriend? When you have the guts, then we can talk about changing girlfriends. After I escaped from Jean Ford's private room that day, I didn't see him for a while. His secretary said Jean Ford was too busy with business to come back. I guessed that maybe he knew what was on my mind and deliberately avoided me. I couldn't help but feel a little frustrated. In order to divert my attention, I took BFF's advice and chatted with a few handsome guys online. That evening, I put on my makeup and was preparing for my appointment. A car pulled up in front of the house. Toby ran out of the car and happily ran towards me. Mom, Toby's going on a field trip. Field trip? I froze, staring at the man getting out of the car. My mind reeling for a moment, Jean Ford turned to the nanny behind him and said, Pack their things. Where are we going? Jean Ford swept over my lightly made-up face. To the resort. In the blink of an eye, the suitcase was already in the trunk by the driver. Getting in the car, I realized afterward that the estate we were going to was 100 kilometers away. Uncle Junior, I have a date. Although that date has a group of people not less than me. Jean Ford looked out the window and gently sked. Not early to say that on the highway, can still put you down. The driver smiled and said, Mr. Ford is going to talk business this time. Miss Rachel heard about it and wanted to go. So she brought you along. Oh, it wasn't on purpose. I turned my head and looked out the window, my heart even more bored. After a bumpy ride, we finally arrived at the resort after nightfall. As soon as we got out of the car, I saw a young and beautiful figure swooping towards Jean Ford, like a butterfly. "You're late." A slightly petulant tone. Jean Ford introduces her. "Rachel Summers, you should know her. Lila Lauren looks like she just noticed me. Ren, long time no see. Lila Lauren and I are the same age. We were classmates at that time." That's why her long time no see sounds like a real thing to outsiders. Toby hugged Jean Ford's thigh. "Uncle, I want to eat cake." Jean Ford's eyebrows loosened, and he bent down to pick him up. "Which one?" Toby guided Jean Ford to a crowded place. The smile on Lila Lauren's face faded after the little one and the big one left. "Rachel Summers, don't be ashamed to say what's in your heart," she said. I don't know why Jean Ford, who was so strict, was so tolerant towards Toby. He didn't correct Toby's name. I stared at Lila Lauren and smiled. "Ms. Lynn seems to be afraid of me coming back." Lila Lauren smiled but didn't laugh. "Of course I'm afraid. I'm afraid of losing face when my boyfriend is coveted by my niece." Back then, Lila Lauren and I didn't get along very well. Lila Lauren was talking to someone in the women's restroom about how to seduce my brother-in-law, and I heard it. I was so young and angry that I ran up to her and argued with her. She threatened me not to tell anyone. Otherwise, she would make me look bad. Later, she went through my diary and found out my secret of liking Jean Ford and threatened me to tell my brother-in-law. After all these years, Lila Lauren doesn't seem to have changed a bit. "Rachel Summers, do you want me to confess for you? You've got a baby. Where's the courage? Jean Ford favors you because he treats you like a junior. Try making him stepdad." Yeah, I took out my cell phone and called Jean Ford in person. When Jean Ford picked up, I confessed in front of Lila Lauren. "Uncle Junior, I like you." Jean Ford gave a start and hung up without saying a word. I held up the phone and looked at Lila Lauren. "He doesn't seem to have kicked me out of the house either. Instead, it's about you counting on my Uncle Junior. Do you need me to tell him as is?" Lila Lauren's smile faltered. "Rachel Summers, do you have any more shame?" I didn't bother to talk to her anymore. I turned around and walked away. Suddenly there was the sound of falling water behind me. Water splashed all over me. Then came Lila Lauren's cries for help. "Help! Rachel Summers, don't you go. Help me to—" I looked back in surprise to find Lila Lauren struggling in the pool. The eyes of the entire room were cast over. Isn't that Mr. Ford's girlfriend? How did she fall in the water?" The lifeguard jumped into the pool and fished Lila Lauren out. Amidst the whispers, Jean Ford cut through the crowd and approached. "What happened?" Lila Lauren, startled, fell to the ground and coughed up water, her voice taking on a sobbing tone. "Ren, she doesn't seem to like me." Jean Ford swept a glance at me, just in time to meet my eyes full of anger. Lila Lauren didn't dare to get Jean Ford wet. She just carefully held his hand and told him in a serious manner. She pushed me down. Sighs came from around the room. "Hey, that little girl is finished. Who doesn't know that Mr. Ford thinks Lila Lauren is a treasure?" Jean Ford asked in a faint voice. Ran, is it what she said?" I quickly explained. She jumped herself. Lila Lauren froze and shivered. "Jean, I know that my purpose of approaching you in the first place wasn't pure. And it's normal for Ran to have a problem with me, but all these things, you know. You have forgiven me. Why can't she even forgive me?" I was shaken. All this, Jean Ford knew. Jean Ford didn't retort. "Well, I'll have someone take you to the hospital." Lila Lauren glanced at me smugly and continued to pout. "Can you stay with me?" Jean Ford doesn't bat an eye. "Rachel Summers isn't happy with you, so of course I have to stay and teach her the rules." It was a subtle statement. Lila Lauren blanched. Jean Ford then released her hand, wiped her wet fingertips, and tossed the handkerchief into the trash. "Rachel Summers, come with me." Jean Ford led me through the door. "Come here." He casually sat down on the couch with the same gesture as he had when I had flunked English to rise to the occasion. I stood still. Jean Ford frowned. "What are you doing?" At this moment, the aggression in my heart reached its peak. I suddenly yelled, "Uncle Junior, you're really annoying." The voice echoed in the room. Jean Ford looked like he didn't hear me. "What did you say about me?" Tears rolled down my face. "Are you getting old and confused?" The water was at my back. Of course, she jumped herself. After I turned around, Jean Ford said, "I'm not blind. No one tonight thinks you pushed Lila Lauren. Come here and change your clothes." I realized that a dry dress had been laid out on the couch. However, I held a fire inside and continued to yell, "So you're calling me stupid?" Jean Ford's forehead veins popped, and he patiently said, "I'm not calling you stupid. Then why don't you break up?" The extent of this topic jump managed to silence Jean Ford. He reacted for a while and said with composure, "Okay, this is a breakup. You sit down. I'll talk to you slowly." I interrupted him fiercely. "I don't. You already know what Lila Lauren is like, but you refuse to take the initiative to break up. That means you really like her." I looked like a clown when I told you in all seriousness that her intentions were not pure. I was speaking so fast that Jean Ford managed to catch a chance to interject. "I didn't think so. It's not like I'm promising you a breakup." My voice got louder. "You're not making it up to me. I'm going to cut ties with you and I'm done with you." Jean Ford's expression was subtle. There was a calmness that came over me and was forced down. "Rachel Summers, say that again." I tic-tac-toe into my sneakers and reopened the door, cursing back, "Are you old? I can't hear out of my ears." After that, he flung the door open with a resounding thud under his grim gaze. This was the first time I messed with Jean Ford. After leaving the room, I calmed down. The hotel room was full. Where was I going to book a room? When I was at a loss, Jean Ford's secretary rushed over and handed me the room card. "Mr. Ford said that Miss Toby is being taken care of, so you have a good night's rest tonight." I had mixed feelings. He didn't say anything else? The secretary smiled. "No, I felt like I had hit cotton with my fist. He had just had a fight. Wasn't he angry?" I took the room card and slept in my room for the rest of the night. The next day, the secretary came knocking on the door. "Mr. Fu said he broke up. So, when your anger subsides, go down for dinner." I was a little surprised. I was a bit surprised. I was a little surprised. When I went downstairs for dinner, the atmosphere was a bit delicate. I scolded Jean Ford last night, but I didn't want to apologize to him in public. So I kept my head down and didn't say anything. Jean Ford didn't care at all. He was laughing and joking with others. "Mr. Fu, your family, this seems not too happy." Jean Ford said helplessly, "I had a temper tantrum last night, and I couldn't coax it out of him." He handed me a cupcake. I took it and slowly nibbled on it. Still no words throughout the morning. Jean Ford handed me something that held me up so much that I couldn't even walk. I took his cell phone and clicked on the PDD link that was shared with him. Jean Ford's phone suddenly vibrates at that moment. Someone was calling. Not wanting to get too close to him, I simply put it on speakerphone. A young voice, teasingly, came through the receiver. "Hey, that Toby kid. Yours?" At those words, I stiffened and sat upright without realizing it. Jean Ford didn't even bother to raise his eyes. "What?" The man smiled to himself. "Looks like you. When did you have a daughter behind my back come up and ask me for ice cream to eat?" Jean Ford's fingers, which were about to hang up the phone, lurched, hung above the phone, raised his eyes, and stared at me thoughtfully. An eerie calm fell around us. The tip of my heart trembled. The heart jumped out of my throat. "Rachel Summers, huh?" Jean Ford surveyed my face deeply and suddenly smiled. "You're not hiding anything from me, are you?" I calmly shoved my cell phone into Jean Ford's pocket. If he hadn't heard me, Jean Ford wasn't in a hurry either, staring at me slowly, waiting for me to answer. I muffled my voice and changed the topic. "I'm going over to the hot springs with BFF tonight." Seeing that Jean Ford still didn't say anything, I said solemnly again, "There is a possibility that I will sleep over there and not come back." "Oh, you sleep over there?" Jean Ford repeated nonchalantly. I choked and said with a stern face, "You don't look for me." Jean Ford laughed. "Okay, I don't look for you." After that, I left without looking back. When I walked far away, I could still notice Jean Ford's gaze on me. Turning out the door, I suddenly ran in the opposite direction. "Help, am I about to be exposed?" At nightfall, BFF was taken aback by my sudden intrusion. Ran, "Why do you look so ugly? There's still the smell of alcohol. You've been drinking," holding a bottle of vodka that I don't know where I got. I staggered over and fell into the soft chair in front of her. "I thought you said drinking was good for your guts." I muttered. Why am I still scared? The BFF picked up the bottle and screamed, 56 proof. You've drunk half the bottle. Are you crazy? I felt my heart pounding. Lights and shadows were reversing in front of my eyes, and my head was spinning. What am I going to do? I wailed out loud. BFF propped my head up and snatched my bottle and asked, What to do? What did you do again? I leaned into her ear, my voice deafening. Jean Ford nosed. BFF's eyes bugged out. Knew the baby was his. I grinned like a nervous wreck. Soon. I'm going to get fucked by him soon. Remember to visit my grave next year. BFF let out a long breath. Hey, it wasn't even a guess yet. She set me down in the soft chair and got up to get something from the table. When he's about to find out, won't you just run again? Or if you like to sleep with him, then sleep with him once and then run. BFF's words suddenly caught in his throat. I looked up in a daze. Why don't you say it? I like to listen to you when you talk. Haha. Sleep again. BFF suddenly covered my mouth. I in the darkness. The two of us were wide-eyed. She lowered her voice and whispered like a ghost story. Do you know where this is? The radio room. I just forgot to turn off the microphone. A few minutes later, I was dragged out of the radio room by BFF, stumbling, whizzing down the hallway like a kite. I laughed like a nervous wreck. Damn. Haha. Why does the resort have a radio room? You're sick. Staying up in the middle of the night calling me to the radio room. Shut up, you. I don't know where she took me. I only know that it finally stopped. In front of my eyes, light and shadow flow, brilliant and confused. There was a lot of noise. When I saw the man walking in front of me, I was almost scared out of my wits. The smile was gone from Jean Ford's face, and those dark, sunken eyes stared into one's heart. Suddenly a man yanked BFF to the side with a sinister smile. Baby, where did I put my birthday song? BFF was carried away. I was left standing alone. I am left standing alone. Like I'm under a fixation spell, Uncle Junior. In just a few minutes, the scene was dispersed cleanly. He and I were the only ones left in the large ballroom, surrounded by Jean Ford's people. It was hard for me to escape. Ran. Why are you running? Jean Ford's tone was deep and unhurried. I was so scared that my face turned white. I insisted, I'm not running. I'm just going on a long trip. I'm going to miss my plane. Out of the door for what? Morning late husband. Damn it. What am I talking about? Oh, Jean Ford smiled. Morning late husband. I blanched. Another inch, my lips quivered, and I couldn't get half a word out. Yeah, after all, tied the knot, married. Jean Ford's hand gently clasped my neck, smiling calmly and naturally. So, you're carrying my child, married to someone. He really knew all about it. My legs went weak and I almost hung onto him. No, Jean Ford said slowly, you've got a lot of guts to make my child take someone else's last name. Guess, will I get you killed? Chaotic brain is trying to turn. I put my arms around him and whimpered in a small voice, please, let me go. I am drunk and bullshitting. Toba's dad is dead. Don't believe me when I mourn my late husband and give you the video. Jean Ford suddenly pulls me closer, a smile chilling the corners of his lips. Keep making it up. Rend, late husband, will be here today to listen to your bullshit. I was already drunk. This is even more scared to walk half a step. Head in Jean Ford's arms. I am feeling dizzy. Jean Ford was amused by me. It's okay, I have plenty of time to spend with you. This is a must for me to give a statement. I hugged him, slowed down for a while, and suddenly ran towards the outside. There was a soft laugh from Jean Ford behind me. It didn't seem to bother him at all. I scurried around like a headless fly. Jean Ford was right behind me. The man at the door stopped me, Monsieur. This way is not open. I turned around and ran towards the stairs. Passing through various doors that had been manhandled along the way, I finally came to a certain floor. The door to the room in front of me was wide open. And there was only one room. It was the hotel's presidential suite. I took a tangled look at the distance and blocked Jean Ford in the elevator entrance, coloring, you're not allowed to follow me. Jean Ford HMMD and spared a promise. No following. I almost tripped on the thick carpet as I turned my head toward the door. Jean Ford was quick to catch me. The light woody scent was catalyzed by body heat and intensified. You got eyes in your head? I struggled for a moment, found that struggling not to move Red Ears said, "Uncle, you let go of me, I walk steadily. Oh. You walk steadily." He laughed softly and shallowly. "I thought you were drunk." After saying that, he let go of me and watched me run inside in a panic. Taking long legs, he followed me without slowing down. "Slow down, I can eat you." I managed to set into the door. Suddenly my legs were light, and I was off the ground. The scenery in front of me reversed. I was thrown onto the bed. Drunks sure are slow. I'm losing my patience. Jinyan Ford slowly and methodically removed the watch. "Uncle Junior." My voice trembled. "Give me a break. Don't get me killed." Jinyan Ford's voice contained a smile. "Let me break up, but also to cut off relations with me. I'll listen to you. You want to go? How can I spare you?" Frozen in thought, Jinyan Ford's palm pads on my back, pressing me into his arms. I felt my hot body enveloped in a light scent, as if trapped in a trance. I couldn't break free. I couldn't escape. Ran. "Have you ever heard of a late husband claiming your life?" The warm, cool tone of his voice sent shivers down my spine. I struggled and moved back, being dragged back slowly and methodically by Jinyan Ford. "Have mercy. Don't claim my life." I was in a hot flash, and the paralysis from the alcohol made me start babbling, even started popping up TV show lines. Jinyan Ford was in a good mood. "Shoo, please. Fingertips slid down my neck and I went limp. Jinyan Ford's sneer came, begging, "Want help? Don't you want to sleep with Uncle Junior? If you can't sleep, don't close your eyes tonight." Jinyan Ford, who wasn't drunk, was obviously harder to deal with than he was 5 years ago. Unlike that time 5 years ago, tonight, Jinyan Ford seemed to have a punitive tone, kissing hard and viciously. Soon the taste of blood began to fill his lips and teeth. "Say, who's Daddy Toby?" "Not you, not." Jinyan Ford laughed and slapped me. "Relax. Do you know you get all tight when you lie?" Uncle, it's useless to call me a liar. The truth is the only way to I in the end." I was so exhausted that I confessed with a shiver. Jinyan Ford then gave up, gently kissed my forehead. "Okay, go to sleep." Scenes from 5 years ago and tonight's dream intertwined, stirring me up and rolling me around. I woke up from my dream, vaguely hearing the sound of water in the washroom. Jinyan Ford is on the phone. The phone was on external, extra clear through the sound of the rushing water. "I thought you were going to break the girl's legs." I froze, realizing that the girl child was referring to me. Jinyan Ford's nonchalant voice came through. "In normal times, it's supposed to be like this. Why not this time?" Jinyan Ford was silent for a long time. "I don't want to scold you for being so pathetic." I rolled over slowly. I met Jinyan Ford, who had just come out of the bathroom and subconsciously hid under the covers. He came over and sat on the edge of the bed and stroked my head. "When are you going to get over being a coward? You were pretty good at scolding me last time, weren't you?" I didn't say anything, but I kept my eyes open. Jinyan Ford stared at me for a moment and sighed softly. "Still too small. I should have just brought you back from overseas." Am I that horrible? You don't even say things like that. Actually, in the beginning, I hid it quite well. I reported my whereabouts regularly every week, even when I went into labor. I arranged to have it sent at regular intervals. In case Jinyan Ford got suspicious, I even sent it as often as once a day. Everything. The goal was to bore him with my messages. Thinking of this, I suddenly grabbed Jinyan Ford's cell phone placed on the bedside and opened WeChat. Unexpectedly, I found myself at the top. Jinyan Ford ignored my surprised gaze and slapped my ass. "Get up. Home today." I was tossed a little hard. Halfway through, I realized that I was actually supposed to be mad at Jinyan Ford. He still hasn't explained the whole Lila Lauren thing to me. Nor has he confessed to me. Isn't that scum? The car pulls up in front of family mansion. I glanced at him silently, met his gaze, and said, "Quiet, I'm angry." Jinyan Ford froze. "What's wrong?" I said. "Guess, Jinyan Ford." And then he left. BFF holds his cheeks and listens intently. I said, "Yeah, and he left." BFF exploded. "That's too much. Actually, I forgot to mention that Jinyan Ford asked me what I wanted to eat before he left, but I just ignored him." Seeing my depressed face, she said, "Ren, have you ever thought that the reason you are so humble is because you two are not on the same page? You need to let him know that you are no longer a child to be disciplined by him, but an adult." I thought it made sense and asked, "How Do all the things your brother-in-law didn't let you do before. I thought it made sense. Later that night, Jean Ford, who was still at work, received a text message from me, a few photos of male models, each with a different look. Uncle, these two are good tonight. Help me choose one. Jean Ford's phone call came in immediately. I hung up mercilessly. I also took Toby to BFF's house for a few days, not afraid to go crazy and pick on Jean Ford. Chat logs sent to Jean Ford show that I fell in love with 18 young men in 10 days. BFF looked at the personally sourced web maps and nodded with satisfaction. Good, that's how you can give him a sense of crisis. You are not indispensable to him. Jean Ford went from an initial warning to a direct reply of one as if counting for me. Just when I thought I could still create a few days in peace, Toby suddenly came to me in tears, said her toy bear was missing. After a long time of reminiscing with her, Toby whimpered. I left my bear in my dad's bedroom. Family mansion, your dad's bedroom. Toby nodded his head vigorously. Mommy, can you bring bear back? Toby cried pitifully, and I was in a quandary. In case you run into Jean Ford, I called my nanny's aunt at home. Auntie said, Mr. Fu is not in tonight. I breathed a sigh of relief and hurried to family mansion. As dusk approached, the light in the family mansion gradually dimmed. I arrived at Jean Ford's bedroom door and was about to push it when I suddenly heard the sound of running water coming from inside. He was home. In the midst of my apprehension, I suddenly saw the barriers peeking out of the doorway. Just out of reach. Push the door open and you can get them. I gathered my courage and quietly pushed the door gap wider, sideways, and put my hand over. The family mansion was silent. I didn't realize that the water in the bathroom had long since stopped. A layer of soft bathrobe was grabbed into my hand. It brought a slight dampness. I froze and was suddenly carried by a hand. Carried through the door. There was a click. The door to the room closed, the last of the light obliterating into dimness. The unique scent belonging to Jean Ford, mixed with the smell of body lotion, spreads faintly. Ran. I don't remember when I taught you that you can drill into a man's bedroom with impunity. Hot breath brushed against his ear, bringing a tidal wave of dryness. The distinctive voice belonging to Jean Ford knocks at my sensitive, fragile nerves. My legs go weak and I reach up to climb into his robe. I retorted stiffly, I'm an adult. I don't want you to teach me. Jean Ford gave a lurch, seemed to understand my thoughts, and laughed lowly. My bad. I shouldn't have seduced you with the door open. My face was just barely pressed against his open collar, feeling the droplets of water roll down the lines of his full, firm muscles, one by one, into his robe. Jean Ford's voice is raspy and suggests with a smirk, you can pull it open to see, just suggesting it, not teaching it. Underneath Jean Ford's hot chest is a steady, strong heartbeat, bumping against my palm one at a time. A belated period of rebellion makes me take his words in stride. I suddenly wrapped my arms around his neck, lifted my head, and stood on my tiptoes to initiate a kiss. Since it was so dark, I looked in the wrong spot. The kiss was on the knot of his throat. Jean Ford's breath sank, and he easily locked my hands and pressed them into the bed, and more cold feet. I pushed him back and muttered, truce for now. I need to get Toby his bear. Jean Ford wasn't subtle. That's fine. But first let's talk about you being in love with 18 men. I choked and questioned Jean Ford. Do you think you've got me? I'm not the one who's good-natured and talkative. What if I have your child? Don't you dare try to pin me down. Jean Ford laughed. Can I pin you down? Ren, in all fairness, when did you ever try to pin me down? When have I ever pinched you? Jean Ford let go of me since I was a kid. When you flunked out, did I try to get you to take remedial classes? You get a little upset, and next time you come back with an even lower grade. I muttered, that's because you're so mean. I'm scared. Jean Ford said, your parents entrusted you to me. I'm going to make a statement. I thought about it. Okay. Even if you grew up disciplining me because you wanted to be legal guardian, what about now that I've been mean to you? I said, you knew the baby was yours and you watched me make jokes. Jean Ford was silent. He said, I'm just guessing. Why don't you ask? Jean Ford's expression was a bit obscure. Do you think, given my relationship with you, it looks like a pervert to ask that when you're not sure? I thought about that scene. It was a bit perverted. Jean Ford sighed, whether it's stealing Toby's hair for a paternity test or investigating it in some other way. To me, it's the same as coveting you as an elder, I asked unconvincingly, which means that the only way you don't look like a pervert is if I take the initiative, in principle. Yes, I kicked him unconvincingly. Is that your reason for not confessing to me? Jinyan Ford's eyebrows relaxed. Just don't confess. He lowered his head and gagged me, kissing me so hard I couldn't breathe. Then looking at me, annoyed, he said, "Just propose." That I froze, Jinyan Ford said. It was rushed. I was in a hurry to get ready, and I didn't realize I was still keeping you waiting. I was in deep thought. Indeed, it seems like you can't tell me in advance when you're proposing, otherwise there would be no surprise. I thought more carefully. No, there's still Lila Lauren. You call that seamless? How can it be seamless if I haven't even touched her? Jinyan Ford pinched my face. When Lila Lauren was trying to trick me, she was guided by someone high up. The one I was fishing for was actually the one behind her. After drugging me and harming you by mistake, wouldn't it be unreasonable for me not to settle the score with him? I stared at his face, thinking slowly. That's why you shouldn't have broken up with Lila Lauren. I am afraid the person behind me still has moves to make. It's easier with Lila Lauren. Jinyan Ford pushed me down onto the pillows and leaned in for a kiss. But it doesn't matter. It's not worth pissing you off over something like that. As the night wore on, I realized that Jinyan Ford was still jealous. Those 18 young men were nagging at him. I panicked a little, warning him, "I am your equal. You're not allowed to punish me." Jinyan Ford hums and whispers in my ear, "Ren, if I were a legal guardian, I'd probably punish you for not being allowed to leave the house. But tonight, you're right, we're equals. A man, I will only." I stared in horror as he finished the last 3 words. I couldn't react in time before I was dragged over for my life. At the end, Jinyan Ford even smiled and asked, "Get your license tomorrow." Okay. I was still in a daze, and I mumbled suspiciously, "What's the rush? Is it urgent? I feel fine." "Didn't you say you'd wait for me to take the initiative?" Jinyan Ford grinned. "That's okay." He suddenly intensified his attack, lazily saying, "Come on, Ren, propose to me." Seeing that I was about to cry again, Jinyan Ford stopped and coaxed, "Okay, give me a title, okay?" BFF stared at the diamond ring on my hand. His eyes glazed over. "So soon?" I nodded. "Well, that's soon." The news that Jinyan Ford was wearing a wedding ring on his ring finger went viral the next day. Considering my life with Toby, I wasn't planning on going public anytime soon. There was a lot of talk about who Jinyan Ford was marrying. Miss Sia. We meet again. This man named Sushibai once again blocked me. At the mall. This is the 3rd time in a month. The spirit is still alive. Mr. Fu is so busy. How can he ignore your feelings for the sake of getting married? I took a bag of potato chips and threw it into the shopping cart, uncertainly. "Do I have any feelings?" Sushibai said courteously. "Don't you like your little uncle? He married. You must be very sad." I admit that he smiles extremely confusing, but isn't his brain a bit abnormal? He thought that someone else was married to Jinyan Ford. When I hesitated, Sushibai took the initiative to pull out a cell phone and handed it to me. "Miss Xia, I can help you, as long as you follow what I say." "Help me with what?" "Get your brother-in-law." I looked at him seriously for the first time, reached out and took the phone, smiled. "Yeah, you're a good guy." For a brief half-hour we formed an alliance. Jinyan Ford pulled up in front of the mall right on time. I ran out with my things, pulled open the car door, met his gaze, and called out with a smile, "Uncle Junior." The smile on Jinyan Ford's lips froze. Since we got married, Jinyan Ford has strictly forbidden me to call him Uncle Junior in public, otherwise, he will be punished at home. Jinyan Ford's gaze paused on the cell phone I was holding up, and it was instantly clear. "Get in the car." I leaned into him with reckless abandon. "Uncle Junior, I miss you so much. Why are you ignoring people when you're busy marrying Auntie?" Jinyan Ford's eyelids fluttered. "Isn't this coming to ignore you?" I winked at him wordlessly. Sushibai's voice came from the headset. "Ms. Xia, remember to go home, and make sure to set up the camera. With the video, we won't worry about winning." Jinyan Ford seems to be the same as before. On the way back, he abided by his duty as a brother-in-law and refused to even touch me. When I arrived home, he went to the study, Sushibai urged me, quickly, change your clothes, don't worry, as long as you record the video of him holding you, I can help you. I owed and went into the master bedroom. Sushibai said in relief, little girl is so bold. Good job. I changed my clothes and set up my phone when the sound of the door opening came from behind me. Ranjin Ford's voice came to a screeching halt when he saw what I was wearing. I tugged at the school uniform I was wearing and smirked. It's pretty much the same as my high school uniform, Uncle Junior. Do you remember? Jinyan Ford sighed and closed the door without a word. Turning around, he started taking off his watch. I was still immersed in the joy of being 18 again when I was suddenly grabbed by the waist, my head hanging in the air. I'm not going to be able to do that, little Uncle Splat. I received a slap on the buttocks. Jinyan Ford's smile was cold. What did I say to be called? I struggled in vain. Someone. What are you doing without blinking? Jinyan Ford jerked away my hidden phone and put it to his ear, laughing. Mr. White, I thought the last time was enough of a warning. He was still absent-mindedly holding me down under the covers as he spoke. My little face turned red and I was about to run away when Jinyan Ford dragged me back and buckled me underneath. From the other end came Sushibai's sharp-tongued mockery. Jinyan Ford, you hypocritical. Even if you're married, you still dare to covet your own niece. Tomorrow I'll make you lose your reputation. Jinyan Ford couldn't help but laugh out softly. You can try. After that, he hung up the phone. I covered my head with a throw pillow. Uncle Junior. Snort. Accompanied by a ripping sound. My clothes turned into pieces. I was dumbfounded. Jinyan Ford said slowly, I didn't know you liked to play like that. Keep yelling if you want me to be an animal. I whispered, he's always pestering me. It's kind of annoying. I just want to toy with him. After I said that I charged, you knew he was videotaping and you picked me up. Jinyan Ford lowered his head and kissed down. Don't worry, it won't get out. Raise your head and shout again. Uncle Junior. Itchy ass again? I kissed and nuzzled his neck. Hubby, since that day, things have been quiet again. A few weeks later, one afternoon, I went out for afternoon tea with BFF and suddenly saw a piece of news. A business owner in the city, suspected of tax evasion as well as other reasons, had been arrested. BFF forked up a slice of cake and pointed at the person on it. Your brother-in-law's opposite family seems to be somewhat related to Lila. Laurent. I recognized the man's face. Sushibai did on the TV. Sushibai looked into the camera and seemed to be chanting something. The sense of conviction in his eyes was almost overflowing onto the screen. The TV station didn't play the original soundtrack. It was a newscaster's report the whole time. I asked, what's he saying? Doesn't look too smart. The BFF squinted, read his lips for a moment, and said, he's talking to you. He said, Ms. Sia. I won't let you down. When I get out, I'll try again. That's why. Jinyan Ford never told Sushibai about my marriage to him. With Sushibai in jail, some things gradually surfaced. That night 5 years ago, Sushibai utilized a gap in the banquet to avoid Jinyan Ford's eyes and ears and drugged his drink. Afterward, have someone send him back to his hotel room, then have Lila Laurent go ahead and pick him up, attempting to make a raw deal. In the process, Lila Laurent ran into the wrong house. After sleeping around, she found out that the other guy was a male college student. On the contrary, I brought a change of clothes from home to Jinyan Ford because my secretary was too busy. A misadventure made that kind of a mess, and Sushibai, who was bent on destroying his nemesis through scandal. After realizing that Lila Laurent was useless, she turned her attention to me. This farce gradually came to an end with Sushibai's imprisonment. Jinyan Ford took us on a vacation abroad during Toba's summer vacation. At the airport where people were coming and going, I suddenly heard a familiar voice. It was Lila Laurent. She seemed to be arguing with a young man. That's, Jinyan Ford said, the male college student she slept with. I was shocked. Still together after all these years? Jinyan Ford squeezes Toba's lollipop and says, he came to me around the same time as Lila Laurent, who was just setting up her show, and he tore it down. I knew from the beginning that it wasn't Lila Laurent that night. Then why are you claiming it to the public? Jinyan Ford stared at the lollipop in Toba's hand and gave a half smile. I don't know. Maybe I'm waiting for someone to come back, or wait for someone to jump out and claim me. A big black dog holding up a puppy tag. waiting for its owner to claim it, popped into my mind. Have you ever thought about what if it's not me? I did. Jinyan Ford wipes Toba's sticky hands almost every night. Ren, I can't talk about my feelings for you without being innocent. If it weren't for you, I'd stay away from you. I wouldn't even see you again in this life. My heart trembled. When did you start? I don't know. Jinyan Ford stroked Toba's head. Maybe since you came of age, maybe. Jinyan Ford didn't go on. I realized that it was one in a million of all possibilities that he and I would be where we are today. If there hadn't been a mistake back then. Jinyan Ford would have been unmoved even if I had taken the initiative and been more enthusiastic. I silently hooked his fingertips. Toby and I hadn't been able to hide our identities after all. The day it was revealed, our vacation wasn't over. I held my cell phone in my hand the whole day, feeling uneasy. After all, my relationship with Jinyan Ford was a bit complicated. It's always been subject to worldly debate and judgment, but this incident didn't seem to make much of a splash on the internet. The BFF said on the phone, "Don't worry, no one around here knows about it." Either Jinyan Ford has paid enough money to keep quiet, or he is paid to suppress the hot search. Your Fu family is a big family. How can you not be able to protect you? 2 or 3 days have passed, but the wind and waves are still calmed. My heart was hanging in the air, and I gradually let go. That evening, Toby followed his nanny to the beach to collect shells. The sun was setting through the glass window, spreading out on the white sheets. After a love affair, Jinyan Ford held me against the glass window and kissed me tenderly. Tired, I'm covered in a crimson evening glow. After my shower, I turned on Jinyan Ford's cell phone. He was in the shower. I yelled at him twice when the text came in, but he didn't hear me. I clicked on it. I found out that it was from one of the elders of the Ford family. Jinyan, I didn't expect you to be so tough. If you insist, then so be it. I scrolled forward and found the chat records between Jinyan Ford and the elder. Looking at the time, it was when she was still in the country. We don't approve of you and Rachel Summers. The Ford family has never had a scandal of this magnitude. Jinyan Ford, I'm informing you, not asking for your permission. She's your brother's child. Jinyan Ford, adopted daughter, even with a different last name. Bah, what adopted daughter? Seduce your own uncle. Don't fear the wrath of God. Reincarnate as an animal. Jinyan Ford, I'm the one who seduced her. If I want to be punished, I'll be the only one to do it. And I'll be the only one to be an animal. I don't have to wait for the next life. Jinyan Ford sent a draft of an official letter. Roughly, Jinyan Ford is worse than a beast. He covet his own niece and take her by force. He's worse than a beast. Third uncle. Do you want me to contact the press and send it out now? Fu legal guardian generation angry to send a series of exclamation points. You are going to ruin the Fu family. If you want to destroy her, I will destroy the Fu family. You. Jinyan Ford said, I advise you to find the right person before cursing. She's too young to listen to profanity, and if I find out you're going to do it to her, I'm afraid you and I won't be talking on cell phones anymore. The shower door opened. I hastily hid my cell phone under my pillow. Aren't you sleepy? Jinyan Ford copied me out of habit, balling me up into his arms. I recalled what I had just read. Why did you suddenly take me on a vacation out of the country? No reason. I saw you like it, so I came out. This vacation trip was rushed. Almost the same day we received the news, we left. I think it's because of his third uncle. It turned out that he had already taken care of everything without my knowledge. Instead of asking, I kissed him and slipped my hand into his soft bathrobe. Jinyan Ford clasped my hand, his voice husky. Ren, still in the spirit? I kissed him on the lips. Jinyan Ford, I love you. Jinyan Ford tenses up and rolls over, yanking me back into the brilliant crimson sunset. Ren, I love you. 2. The swaying waves of being render the setting sun into a mass of blooming roses. The day is ending. The moon is long.